Parents should not hit their children. In my own childhood, my father believed in very authoritarian values. What he said goes, and he believed ruling with fear was more effective than being loved. He didn't care about being loved. He didn't care about being nice. One of the only things he didn't do was we never got burnt with like cigarettes or anything like that. Beyond that, it was anything goes. I think a lot of parents, though they don't go to his extreme, do go too far, and I don't think that they even realize they're doing it half the time. And I don't think that they realize the consequences of their actions. A lot of people view, physical discipline such as spanking and things like that as okay, as acceptable and things like that, but they don't realize the long-term effects that it can have on a child's development. It can confuse them in their development. It can warp their love maps to where they view being hit by a spouse or significant other as an acceptable way to deal with problems, and that it's normal and it's appropriate. And we all know that it's not the case. That's not acceptable. The spousal abuse, domestic violence is not acceptable under any circumstances. But when you grow up with that kind of mentality, that is, you hit the people you love, it's just a natural consequence to that. It can also instill a bully mentality of, well, this person was bigger than me, so they got to hit me. So I'm bigger than this other person, so therefore I can hit them. And it just begins this cycle, and the cycle of abuse, and the cycle of violence, and it needs to stop. And this also goes back to my personal experience. Many children who grow up in those kinds of households go on to continue this cycle, either as a victim or as the abuser. I was the victim in mine. My brother eventually became an abuser. But he has gotten a lot of therapy and he's working on it. So people don't realize though that these things, they follow you, they stay with you unless you deal with them. And parents don't realize what they're doing sometimes. They don't get the research and education and resources they need to know that there are other methods and possibilities that they can use to help them discipline their children without having to resort to physical discipline, which can escalate so easily into abuse and violence. There are methods such as positive reinforcement, which is rewarding good behavior. So let's say that your child took out the trash. You reward them. Let's say they went and helped somebody with something without being asked. You could reward that behavior, praise, things like that. It doesn't always have to be like you give them something. It can just be praise, a hug, a high five. There are so many ways to reinforce positive behavior. And that also helps them with their own self-esteem, their own values, how they see themselves. Whereas the negative way, while it will teach them consequences in some ways, there's so many other side effects to it. There are consequences to those consequences. And that's where a lot of people don't see that. I don't think that they just don't realize. But how can it be okay to hit a small child that is so dependent on you for protection and love and security, but you can't hit another grown adult? Someone who is a random person who you have no effect on or anything like that. It's illegal to hit that person, but it's okay to hit the child that depends on you. Why is that okay? In my opinion, it is not. Positive reinforcement, taking away items and earning them back, such as, you didn't do your chores because you were playing the games. So we take the games, get all the chores done, maybe add a couple extra on, just for, consequences to your actions of not doing them in the first place. And so on and so forth, things like that. There are alternative methods. They can be harder and they can be slower, but there are alternatives. You don't have to hit your children. It might be easier in that instant, and it might make you feel better because you're getting that anger out. However, using that anger and things like that can also cross that line very, very easily. We need to find alternatives, more alternatives if these don't work. There are other ways. It's not acceptable. If it's not okay to hit another grown adult, it's not okay to hit your spouse, why is it okay to hit your child? Thank you.